Hello there, welcome to the second episode of this Foundry virtual tabletop adventure creation walkthrough. By way of recap, in the last episode, the first one, we went from scratch building our world, discussed how we were going to do an original world to try and make it more interesting for people viewing the series. Specifically, we talked about creating a module with a compendium pack so that we could export world assets into modules suitable for use by others, as well as exporting those assets that worlds just link to rather than actually containing within themselves. So the former would be assets like the journal notes, actors like creatures, hazards and items, and the latter, those that aren't part of the compendium pack but still packaged within the module, would be images and maps. So, bit of housekeeping first. I obviously made a deliberate mistake, which I'm sure you all spotted in the first episode. Throughout the whole episode, there was a misspelling of Strife and Grimbone. I didn't want to do a Strike and Grimbone walkthrough, I wanted to do a Strife and Grimbone walkthrough. So this was obviously deliberate, just to show how we can easily edit the world. We right click, go to edit world, change the G to an F, and no one would be any the wiser. We'll launch the world now. And here we have a rather blank and plain world. All we had done is made some journal entries. We had done an introduction chapter with an adventure background with various pages here, and the next chapter is going to be chapter 1, Pendaka, so let's enter that now. So what we're going to do in this episode is continue a little bit more of the story, an introduction for the players, and in that process we're going to create a scene, a very basic scene which will be like a landing page. We will do a little bit of entry of some encounters. We will automate that by doing some checks possibly, and create a few basic actors like a loot bag, perhaps another type of actor as well. So chapter 1 Pendaka, we will start with the PC start. So as you know, I'm cutting and pasting from the pen and paper version of my module to make it easier so you don't see lots of very slow typing, and hopefully there'll be fewer strikes instead of stripes as a result. So in chapter 1 Pendaka, in fact, I think I've made a mistake here, haven't I? We'll create a journal page, close that one, and this one will be PC start. Add a page. So there's that slightly counterintuitive thing again where you create a page but then you seem to have to add a page within the page, and there's a block of pages within that journal entry. So the first level is creating a folder, then there's creating a journal entry, and then there's completing the pages within that entry. We don't want to display the page title because it's the same as the title there. And I think we'll get rid of this as well. So, after rolling up their characters, tell the group of players that they find themselves in the lakeside town of Pendaka in the nation of Varisia, which lies on the western coast of the continent of Avistan in the world of Galarion. And this would be a good way to locate the players in the world. We could do this by having a scene, a landing page. So what we're going to do now is create a scene. We go into the Scenes tab, and we can create a folder. So all the scenes that belong to chapter 1 will be found together. We'll change it to manual. I'm just going to use default folder colors. And our first scene, we're going to call this Varisia map. So Varisia is a nation in Galarion where most of the Rune Lord activities occurred 10,000 years ago, and the Return of the Rune Lords activities occurred in the last 20 years, as we discussed last time. So here we have our blank canvas of a scene. We need to all I've done so far is create the folder. Let's create the scene. Oh, I've done it twice. What I needed to do was to open the folder. Delete that one. So these are the configurations. Let's do just what we need to do. So we want the players, to be able to access the scene whenever they wish, just to recap them, refresh their memory of the maps. So permissions will be all players, but most of the scenes it'll just be the game master only who decides when the players can view a scene or not, generally when they're actually exploring that scene. And we're happy with the navigation name being the same as the scene name. Sometimes you might want to change that because this is what is going to be displayed for the players. We don't want to have a giveaway of revealing too much information. And now we have to set a background image. So we'll go into Modules and Strife and Grimbone walkthrough module. If you recall when we set the image before, our assets and our images, and I've updated with a lot of images, but what I haven't done is created a scenes folder. We need to create another external folder within the modules pack to store our scenes. So we'll have to go into our modules folder now, which I will show for you. Foundry, data, modules, here's our list of modules. Now I had stored some in my other version. Assets, scenes, and a bit of a preview here, but spoiler alert, but we'll copy this one. Go into the module we're using for this walkthrough, assets folder. We need to create a scenes folder. And in our scenes folder, we'll put this image. So this is a WebP file. You can use JPG files for backgrounds, that's perfectly fine. If you ever want to have anything with transparency, for example creating a tile or parts of a see-through tile, you're going to need to use WebP or something similar. They say that WebP is good for transferring data across the internet online, so this will hopefully, in this format, create minimum lag for the players when they're online with us. You can see it's quite a large file, but we have quite a lot of headspace for files in the game. Now we'll go up, and now we see on the assets, that we've got our scenes folder just created. And now if we wanted to preview, if we had more than one Varisia map, so that's going to be our background image. We don't need to worry about these things for a landing page. On our grid, I think we will set a grid type, but it will be invisible. And it'll allow us to control the size of the tokens that we put on the thing. So we'll start off with 100, which is our default. We don't need to worry about lighting or ambience or the specific Pathfinder rules. So let's save our changes. And view our scene. And we'll focus in on the place where the PCs are starting, which is the Ashwood Forest, Clay Bottom Lake, and the town of Pendaka, which is just about there. So let's embellish this a little bit. Well, why don't we start off with creating a sample player so that we can put their token on this map, and then the players can look at each other's characters, or at least the tokens of their characters, to get familiar. So we should at this point have a sample player. I'm not going to be a sample PC. I'm not going to be doing another character creation video. So why don't we just use one of the iconics? So if we go into our compendium pack and we just search for an iconic character, so let's choose Sealer level 5. That's our pre-made character. So anyone who has downloaded the Pathfinder 2nd edition system will have access to these in their compendium pack, and we'll drag the level 5 one out. Even though it's starting level 1, it might be easier to playtest with a level 5. So that looks big enough with a grid size of 100 pixels per square inch, or per inch on the side. That looks big enough. And the players, when they link their player with a certain character and they double click, they're going to get all the information there. If they double click on one of the other PCs, they will get a more basic form of the information, not the full character sheet. So we've got Celia here. Who else would you rather like to have with you exploring a new campaign, or if you've been at first level attacked by a demon lord and thrust down through cracks in the earth into an underground labyrinth, you're thinking, oh, who I come across, what's this knight in shining armour, not another stuck-up paladin, they're going to be insufferable. And then it's Celia who you meet as the paladin. You couldn't find a nicer person to be stuck underground with, like a ray of sunshine in a dark place. Anyway, that's me going on about Celia. Let's start going on about what we're supposed to go on about. We have a player, it seems to fit, but why don't we do a little bit more embellishing? Do you remember last time we had a PC information folder, which I think we will set there. When this was a folder where we put information that PCs will have free access to, like their journal. Well, it would be quite nice to have a map, a more local map for the players in there, wouldn't it? When we did our introduction and adventure background, we had this map here, but it would be nice to share it with the players as well, or rather than just share it with the players by clicking on it and then do show players, we could have it so that the players can look at it whenever they wish. So in PC information, which is looking rather blank, we will add a journal entry, and it will be Pendaka region map. And in there we'll source, not in the scenes but in the images folder, source that one. See, I've added in some more to save time, but we need a Pendaka region map, and we got that, and we'll save it. So this is a way that the players can just go into their version of the journal, click that, and that will come up again for them. But what we need to do is set the permissions on this folder so they can actually look at it. We don't want them to look at these ones. We want them to be able to look inside this folder. So we right click and do configure ownership. And all players, we want anyone who's even, the owner is the owner of a player character. The observer is basically anyone who's online. So we click that to observer and save the changes. And that means that that folder and all the subfolders and contents within it are going to be accessible to the players. In contrast, for Chapter 1 Pendaka, we right click that one, configure ownership, no change. Our default is that players can't see what's in the journals, so there's no change there for this Chapter 1 Pendaka folder. They're not going to be able to see that one. So this means that players, as I've said, can click that and get access to a more local map, but it'd be nice if they had, if they could just click on their landing page rather than just within the journal club. So let's see if we can do that. We can go to the journal notes, toggle it so that they're displayed, and then create a map note. And we'll create one about there. And we'll call it Pendaka region map. And you can see there the journal entry that we're going to attach it to is Pendaka region map, and the page of the same name. And we're going to make it globally visible, but everything is globally visible on this basic scene anyway. We will make a custom entry icon. Well, Pendaka is a town, so we'll use the village one, and then we'll update the note. So we see there's a little map there. Perhaps we want it a bit bigger, so we'll double right click it to edit it and change the icon size to 80, double the size, 80 pixels, and now it's a bit bigger. See, we had a kind of grid here, didn't we? But if we press shift, we can more specifically localize the map note. So I'll put it there. And we might maybe want to make it stand out by shading it a little bit. Double right click again. We have it like, because it's up by the sea, so we have it like a blue colour. There we are, Pendaka region map. And what will happen now is people will double left click it, rather than double right click as edit, double left click as activate it. And it will take us to the more local map there, so Clay Bottom Lake, and you can see that Pendaka is just on the south side of the lake, and the Ashwood, where the players will be adventuring, is illustrated there. So I think that's enough on the scene. We'll go back to our PC start. So in italics we had given some instructions for new GMs. Start the PCs on the Varisia map scene, drag each PC's token onto the map so that they can conveniently double click it to bring up their character sheet. As the status of the PCs changes during the adventure, this is automatically updated on the version of the token that appears in this scene. So if the players are in the middle of a dungeon and they're wounded, they've lost half of their spells, etc., but they want to refer to the map, they do so when they double clicking on that icon here, it's going to be updated so that they will see their wounds, all the stats appear on this map version of their token in the same way, in the same status that they appear in the actual dungeon that they're exploring. Whoops, so I want to keep on looking at that actually. Sorry, PC start. We had decided that to make it easier for formatting, we would put this in a block. Sorry, we need to edit it. So that's the viewer, this is the editor. We need to put this in a block. To make it stand out. Save that. And as I've mentioned, the permissions on this map scene is set to all players so they can return to this map when they wish. They can click on the journal note to view the more local Pendaka region map. Another point on setting a landing page, we can look at the configuration by right-clicking on the map there. Really get out of create map notes, which is defaulting to that. Because we're in map note page or tab, whenever we were clicking it was suggesting we wanted to create a map note. If we go back to the tokens tab, it doesn't do that. Do you notice now there's a little sort of indigo bluish flag within the flag? This is telling us that we've got journal maps and that we've got our setting is on to view these journal notes. If we attach a journal note, if we affiliate a journal note with a journal entry that's viewable by players, for example one in PC information, the players are going to see the journal notes. If we affiliate the journal note with a journal entry in a folder that the players aren't supposed to see, they won't be able to see it. If you create one in here and you don't affiliate it with a journal, I believe the default seems to be that the players will be able to see it. So say if you want an up or down staircase and you don't really want to bother with a journal entry for that, you can just create it in here, not bother to affiliate it with a journal entry, and then the players will see it. But if the players have not have their setting on toggle notes display, they won't be able to see it. So it might be advisable to remind them to set that. I'm going to go back into tokens mode. Where was I? So we were on PC start and discussing the permissions. Oh yes. So we can activate or change the configuration of a scene by right-clicking there. We can also go into the Scenes tab here and right-click there. Notice how automatically the program creates a kind of snapshot of our scene so we can easily identify it in the tab here. We'll right-click here and do Configure. So a couple of things we want to do is to set the initial view position for the players, so that when you first load up the scene or when you subsequently load up the scene, activate it, the view might be zoomed if you want, or in a different corner if you want. Let's do that. So we will want it not to have ugly edges on the air, but zoomed in a bit, maybe like that, so they can see it's Varisia. They've got the main features there, and obviously they can zoom out if they wish, but when they first look at the page it's going to look like that. So we will configure, and then the initial view position is just how we captured the current view there. The other thing we want to do is on lighting. We don't want to restrict visibility within the scene to the vision of controlled tokens. We want to make the entire scene visible because it's a loading page or landing page. So we want to uncheck those and save the changes. That's our first scene. Then once the players know where they are and they've rolled up their characters, they've probably done backgrounds, but it may be nice to have a backstory more than just a background. You may be a bit flexible. This is almost analogous to those adventure paths where there's a player's guide where they might get unique backgrounds to be suitable for when they're in a certain campaign. So I think it's nice to do this and to discuss backstories with each player in private to explain how they came to be in this nondescript backwater town of Pendaka, as we've shown, around there. And one way to do that is by doing plot hooks, and I've made a note here that it would be very helpful for the campaign if at least one PC can understand ancient Thessalonian. So this is almost like a group of people, and you've got one person who can read and write Latin, ancient Thessalonian being the language of the rune lords from 10,000 years ago. And I've stated here that it would fit well with plot hooks 107, which we'll now enter. In this campaign, the players default to being good or neutral, but it's certainly open to having a PC who may be a bit neutral and selfish, may have their own agendas, and depending on your group of players, you may or may not think that that's something they would find more interesting, or something that might create conflict between the players that you wouldn't actually want. So let's do another journal entry of the plot hooks. Add a page of the same name. We don't want to double the title. And I've cut and pasted the plot hooks here. So here I've written, you may choose to enhance player involvement with some PC-specific plot hooks. As part of role-playing, the players may share as much of this information as they wish with the other players, and when they wish. So examples include, first one, you are or would like to become a member of the Pathfinder Society. You are particularly interested in old Thessalonian history, religions and artifacts, especially those associated with the kingdom of Shalast. Shalast was the nation that Karzug, the rune lord of greed, ruled many thousands of years ago, and it so happens that Ashwood Forest and the neighbouring area lies within the previous region of Shalast. And where better to search than in Varisia, where the rune lord of greed recently made his presence felt. You may or may not be sensitive to local attitudes towards foreigners stirring up painful rune lord associated memories, and so may or may not wish to keep your interests hidden. You may be in danger of developing an unhealthy obsession with the rune lords, and that can lead to certain PC choices later on about whether they're going to maybe accept rune marks that may appear on their bodies, as and whether they're going to go down that path of learning rune magic or not. So is open-ended, something for the players. They might be able to wind up all the locals the wrong way with hilarious consequences. Second plot hook is, you have returned to the area of your birth, having spent most of the latter part of your youth in faraway lands. You are shocked at the dramatic events of the return of the Rune Lords a few years ago, and have vowed to protect your birthlands from any further ancient horrors. So that's a fairly standard champion-like plot hook, but any character of upstanding nature or who has a strong affiliation with the land of their birth would be suitable for this plot hook. 3. You have a long-lost relative in this area, and last you heard they were living in the obscure town of Grimbone. You wish to pay them a visit, perhaps to renew family ties, or perhaps because you want to take advantage of them and the town's wealth. And then I got in italics, not to share with the PC on the plot hook, but for the GM to know. Choose a non-player character with a secret or with a backstory, but obviously of the same or partly same ancestry. Perhaps you might not need, it could be an adopted brother or sister perhaps. Or change the NPC's ancestry to fit. It could be one of the triumvirate, those are the leaders of Grimbone. Even Arca, who's a kind of former leader of Grimbone, or the werewolf, the sage, someone in the mining industry, the innkeeper, the gnome merchant, or the dwarven blacksmith. So as we read the story, we'll get an idea of what might be a nice relative for that particular PC. So this is a fairly kind of neutral plot hook, and what will be interesting is that the relative is perhaps not the person that the PC thought they were. 4. You have heard the legends of the Ashwood, of ghosts, witches and werewolves, and seek to test your mettle against the dangers the forest may hold. You will only be satisfied if you come away with a tale to tell of your heroic exploits against such foes. So this is a kind of iconic Emiri type plot hook. You're simply there for adventure and the glory of such. Plot hook 5. Recent exportation of silver from the area and meteoric iron has come to the attention of interested parties. You have been hired to spy on the silver mines that must lie somewhere in the Ashwood and report back with your findings. If you can disrupt the operation or bend it towards the influence of those you serve, so much the better. Choose an organisation the PC is working for that fits their background and could be worried about raw materials being used for arms by their enemies. We could choose the Elves of Kyonin for elven characters or half-elven characters. We could choose the Dwarves of the Five Kingdoms Mountains, the Eagle Knights, the Esoteric Order of the Palatine Eye, or it could be a slightly less good aligned organisation like the Aspis Consortium, who is a group of selfish merchants. They may be concerned about trade rivals. Number 6. City life has disillusioned you, or you are escaping it. You wish to make your home, at least for now, in a relative backwater such as the area around Lake Claybottom. A big fish in a small pond. It should be relatively easy to realise your ambitions in such a place before you move on to greater things. Plot hook 7. This is the other one where it may be appropriate for the character to be able to understand Thessalonian. You have a secret, unhealthy interest in the long-lost evil cult of Lysala, a goddess of ancient Thessalon. Whether this is because you are a true believer or wish to infiltrate yourself in her ranks, perhaps even you are unsure. This is obviously the way I write, to say the player may be unsure and feel their backstory as they go along, because backstories are made to be changed after the event, aren't they? You have heard that relics of the cult have been discovered in the ancient forest of Ashwood, relics that may be the key to Lysala's revival. Hidden allies in the neighbouring fishing town of Pendaka are waiting for you to make contact, and in italics not to be shared with the player, these allies are described in Chapter 1. And 8. Your most nearly famous relative was a member of the Black Arrows, an elite band of rangers that defended the environs of the Forest of Ashwood's western borders. Tales you were told as a child speak of the heroic exploits of your relative, who sadly was never heard from again, and presumed dead, following the attack upon the Black Arrows by servants of the returned Rune Lord. You have grown obsessed with this lost relative and have resolved to discover for yourself exactly what happened. Your path along this journey of discovery has led you to the fishing town of Pendaka. From here, you have caught your first glimpse of the twisted boughs of the sinister forest that claimed your kin. And then, in italics, not for the player, the lost relative has now become the Grimbone ghost and was not the hero the PCs thought him to be. So it's a little bit like the relative one, except we've got a rather specific relative in mind here. And so it might be a character with leanings towards being a ranger themselves, or not necessarily. So those are the plot hooks, and I've got a little bit more about how we would actually use those plot hooks, so we'll have another page entry here. Using the plot hooks. So I've written, it will greatly improve players' investment in the story if it magically seems to gel with their chosen plot hooks. the GM should adapt the odd NPC encounter ahead of time or ad-lib to fit with or undermine a player's expectations or aspirations. And I've written here a specific instruction for Foundry VTT, which we'll put in our usual secret block. You can paste the PC's plot hook in the biography tab of their character sheet, and the player can keep the visibility tab of this section untoggled. Let's show that. Make sure that's saved. So we've got our good old friend Sealer here. Double click, and if it's the character owner, they can go into the biography, and you see the appearance may be public, so anyone can see what they look like, fair enough. But the backstory is by default not visible to other players, and so we can just cut this. Anyway, edit it first. And have our own specific plot hook. Which one should we choose for Sealer? Well, we just choose this one. Oh, I can't decide. Maybe Sealer's just wants to kick butt and chew bubblegum. And so there she is there, so the player can refer to and certainly add to their backstory there. So we've got plot hooks, we're on using plot hooks. What else did we have? So I've given some examples where a spy of Lasala could make contact in Pendaka or even in Grimbone. That was part of hook 7. You have to arrange that you could use the chat, say if we're here, and we can use the chat to communicate with a specific player there. A noteworthy non-player character, a kidnapped NPC, a recently deceased NPC or even antagonist, e.g. the werewolf or a ghoul could be the relative of a PC, so you would introduce them at some point. The PC might be encouraged to stand as a member of the triumvirate or take over in a bloodless or even bloody coup as a result of the perceived incompetency of the current leadership. This is referring to Grimbone, not Pendaka, and that might fit with hook 6, where the PC was wanting to be a big fish in a small pond. And you can get a flavour of the player's interests and aspirations and perhaps adapt these accordingly. Another one might be a non-player character might turn out to be a retired, washed-up or otherwise disillusioned former Pathfinder, and related to hook 1, they might encourage the PC to pursue those aspirations of becoming a Pathfinder, or they might want to discourage them, and there might be some kind of conflict there, and the player character might change their minds. I've suggested that the GM let the story grow in unexpected directions, and the players will truly become part of evolving the narrative. While one player's narrative may dominate some play sessions, try and make sure that all the players have an equal chance across all the sessions. So the characters have been made, plot hooks and backgrounds have been done. Let's start the actual player's introduction. Still on chapter 1 Pendaka. So we perhaps have read the history to the players as an introduction to the campaign. We've created characters, done the landing page, and this is to a bit to introduce them to the story. The stuff in green we put in speech text. So in our block we do block quote, and so that's a sort of format that will stand out. I like to do a little line there just for a bit of more formatting. So after deciding on why each player, let's save it there, after deciding on why each player is in the lakeside town of Pendaka, perhaps with the help of the plot hooks above, read the following. It is a bright autumn morning in the lakeside town of Pendaka, and the town's bustling fish market is in full swing. Hawkers are selling their wares, each claiming to have the freshest fish caught but moments ago from the lake. Piles of silvery, slippery fish overflow crates, barrels and boxes, and the cobbles beneath your feet are wet and slick with their oily residue. Fortunately, a stiff breeze from the lake's dark waters to the west carries away the worst of the pervasive cloying odour. Among the stalls and tightly knotted throng stands a tiny, incongruous-looking open shop front, in which are displayed neatly stacked and labelled items of pottery, mostly broken. A banner proudly proclaims these as ancient relics from a bygone age. An old man behind the display tries to gain the attention of the crowd. Come see the riches of Claybottom Lake, untold mysteries from the depths of time. Hold in your hands the history of 10,000 years. But the locals seem more interested in what the lake can provide them for breakfast. You catch snatches of derisive comments as they jostle past. Still selling what the fishermen throw out their nets? Never mind 10,000 years, there are 10,000 broken pots at the bottom of that lake. You couldn't give 'em away. A loud cry distracts you from your idle eavesdropping. Hear ye, hear ye. You turn to see an overly dressed town crier standing upon a pedestal in the centre of market. Most of the townsfolk stop to listen. Our noble and thrifty mayor calls for brave souls to come to the aid of our neighbouring town, from whom we have not heard for many days. Grimbone may be in peril. At the mention of the name, some of the audience mutter darkly or make warding signs against evil. The town crier continues in loud, practised tones. Volunteers will be richly rewarded from the town's public coffers, half now and half on return with news. But the crowd could hardly be less enthusiastic, despite the apparently generous offer. Some murmur quietly, others have already started resuming their buying and selling. The crier appears to catch the gaze of imaginary applicants coming forward. The mayor will select a few of the most qualified candidates. Now is the time to step forward. Don't all rush at once. His voice trails off as he realizes he has already lost his audience. He meekly steps off the pedestal and hurries, somewhat in embarrassment, away from the market, trying to blend into the crowd. On an impulse, you note his progress, and that he now loiters in front of a large, imposing, 2-story building. You puff out your chest imperceptibly and straighten your shoulders. The crier's words echo in your mind. Call for brave souls. Then you subconsciously reach down for your purse, noting how few coins remain. Half now and half on return. Now is indeed the time to step forward. So those who step forwards, the PCs, have the chance to size each other up. Perhaps some of them already know each other from their backstories. And at this point you could ask each player to describe themselves in turn. Perhaps they're a little bit self-conscious, and instead you could say the town crier looks in pleasant surprise at the small group gathered before him, sizing each other up, and he might prompt them by asking them to tell of themselves before ushering them into the building. That's the town hall to see the mayor. So we've saved that, I think. And let's talk about the town hall. So we'll have another we need to change the order of these, don't we? Make sure it's not alphabetical but manual, and then we can drag that down to the bottom. So that's our correct order. Let's create another one. Pendaka Town Hall. Add a page. Save this. So, upon volunteering, the PCs are led here by the town crier. The town hall is a 2-storey stone building that overlooks the market square and the docks and the lake beyond. It is the largest structure in Pendaka. The walls are strong and fortified with arrow slits, with a battlement running along the flat roof of the upper floor. Clearly the town hall doubles as a fort in times of peril. The town hall is also home to the elected mayor, traditionally the wealthiest individual in town. Currently, Mayor Acquisitus holds the post. Notice how I use ridiculous names. He is a businessman through and through, seeking to gain profit through buying the metals coming from Grimbone and selling them onto the wide world beyond. He dreams of this newfound wealth transforming Pendaka from a simple fishing town to a thriving city rivaling Corvosa. That's one of the biggest cities. Should we have a look on our map here? So Corvosa is there on the southern border of Varissia. Magnamar is another big city in Varissia. Enough share his vision to have re-elected him mayor twice already. When the PCs arrive in the town hall that morning, they are greeted by a liveried servant in the entrance hall. He bids them welcome, adding that the mayor takes pride in the warm reception Pendaka extends to visitors. He presumed that they are here in answer to the summons for aid. The PCs are brought straight to the mayor. And let's do his conversation. So this is the exposition that we get. This is like a requisite of all our games. Beady old men dumping lore and exposition on all of us. I don't think he has a beard, this one. Let's go down to there. Edit, and the editing one. Oh, I've done it bold and I don't want it bold. But we do want it in the inline, the block quote. So this is what happens. So you can read this, you can kind of paraphrase that if you like with the players, but you can paraphrase everything, but I'm not very good at thinking on my feet and speaking on my feet, as you've realised already from these videos, so I like to have something I can read out to them. You are ushered through the main hall and the servant throws open a heavy pair of carved wooden doors. Inside is a meeting room with a long polished oak table. At the far end sits a large figure dressed in thick fur-lined robes, bearing an ostentatious necklace of office resting upon his chest. The symbol is of gold with a thick matching chain. You clearly have an audience with the mayor himself. Given his imposing bearing and the numerous trappings of office around the room, the mayor greets you with surprising informality. He bids you all take seats at the table around him and clears his throat, his practised way of signalling he is about to make a speech. "Thank you, good strangers, for answering my summons. I'm Mayor Acquisitus. I wish the populace of Pendaka were half as enterprising as its visitors. Sadly, their minds are ruled by baseless superstitions. You may or may not be aware that Pendaka is on the rise from fishing port to trading hub, due in no small part to the transportation of precious metals received from Ashwood Forest and distributed to the wide world up and down river to Lake Storval Deep and Sarantula. Well, these metals are mined in Grimbone, an unfortunately named outpost within the forest. Normally, several ox cart loads of metals come through here daily, along with material goods passing back to Grimbone, but there have been no carts for several days, nor have any of our merchants journeying to Grimbone returned. I suspect some kind of ploy by the Grimbone authorities, flexing their economic muscles by setting up an embargo until some new tax levy is agreed. But, you see, the forest still has an evil reputation after the Rune Lord debacle several years ago. That is to say, it already had one, and said debacle did nothing to dispel it. The point is that since the quarries opened up and Grimbone was founded, there have hardly been any difficulties apart from the odd stray ogre. Groundless fears have given way to good fiscal sense. Grimbone is clearly expecting a panic dispatch from my representatives, but those who regularly make the forest trip have already left and not returned, and the Pendaka militia are, shall we say, peculiarly reluctant to set foot outside the town walls. And so it falls upon the town's coffers to solve the problem, as usual, and you, my brave adventurers, are to be the instruments of Grimbone's and Pendaka's salvation. His speech finished, Mayor Inquisitor surveys you with a practised eye, as if appraising a trade deal. At this point, I'm saying allow the PCs to make perception checks, or recall knowledge checks. And as our little aside here for GM notes, we'll put that in our secret block. You could use the party sheet to set a perception check, but the module does this automatically for you. Click the speech icon for the check and it will appear in the chat message tab for all the players. Pink coloured backgrounds signify they are secret checks by default. The players each click the roll in the chat message and you see the results. So enough talking about it, we're going to need actually to do this, aren't we? So let's go down a bit. So we don't want to be in secret thing here, so for that particular line we'll exit it. So what I'm saying is we could go to the party tab here, and if we had any, or we need to set someone in. So Seela, you're in the party. Congratulations. So we've got Seela, and what we can see here is that she's got a perception of +8. So we can roll that. And then we can see that she's made a perception check. But another way to do it is to automate it from within the journal notes. So I'm saying here, on a successful DC 15 sense motive check, the mayor genuinely believes this is nothing more than a ploy by Grimbone, temporarily holding up trade with Pendaka. On a critical fail of the check, the PC thinks that the mayor is lying, so the mayor is telling the truth. But let's automate this. So the way we do this in Pathfinder 2nd edition Foundry VTT language is we do @check, then a square brackets, and the type of the check is a perception one, so type : perception. Then we do the DC, and we have to do lowercase, I think, DC 15. Then we do the that vertical bar, and it's nice to put in a name, lowercase name, colon, and it's a sense motive check. So if it was a proper NPC, we'd be doing perception versus deception, DC. And we want it to be secret because on a critical fail, the PCs are getting wrong information. So we don't want the PCs to know if they failed or critically failed. Or if they critically failed or succeeded, really. So traits, secret. And so there are various tags that you can put to create to the traits, which are comma separated, but we just want one trait, secret, square brackets, and then get rid of that, and we just want to check. So we'll see what's happened. We'll save that. And we now see that instead of just typing, this has turned into kind of a tab, and if we click this, select at least one token, so you need to have a character selected to click it. But we want the players to be able to roll themselves. So if we click on the speech bubble, it will, in the chat messages tab, this card will come up, the game master, because I haven't selected a player, there's a sense motive check that the player wants to do, and if they click on perception there, because this will appear for all the players, they click on perception, they will make the perception roll. We needed to select a token to do it. So if put Sealer back in the in here, near where she's supposed to be, and we've got her selected, and now we can do it. And Sealer has made a perception check, and of course she's got a critical success. What else could you expect of Sealer? So this was a secret check, and she got a critical success. There isn't anything extra for critical success, but you could just add something, couldn't you? The success is, the mayor generally believes there's nothing more than a ploy by Grimbone, temporarily holding up play with Pendaka. You could add, but he has a slight suspicion that may be more going on, or you may say there's someone else. You could give another little tidbit of information. And I'd already done the check for that second roll. So this bit, on a successful DC 15, again, perception check on the mayor's physical person around the room. So if someone was not really specifically checking if the mayor was lying, but just checking the general observation, a general kind of search or investigation roll, it will be revealed, if successful, that his badge of office is in fact just gilt, not solid gold, and nearly worthless, perhaps saying something about the office of mayor and the town of Pendaka. Anyway, the mayor doesn't pause long enough to take questions, continue reading to finish the meeting. So what I've done here is, as I said, there's a lot of information dump, so I split it into two by introducing the players, giving them some agency. They can start making checks, introduce them to the idea that they can make various checks or observations, draw inferences, that sort of thing. So we'll continue the conversation now. In the editor part, and so the mayor finishes his conversation. So apologies for the ridiculous accent, but if you, and especially to people from generic Yorkshire, but some people from who have other accents might not even know how bad my accent is. Anyway, presently the mayor smiles, and this is a bit where the accent completely changes because I've forgotten what it was. Presently the mayor smiles. Allay your trepidations, adventurers. If this is your first outing, one has to start somewhere, and where better than a simple trip through the forest, normally traversed daily by common miners and merchants. A day to reach Grimbone, a day wining and dining with its leaders as my representatives, and a day to the return again in triumph. Trade deals secured, etc., etc. And nothing to burden your journey save 400 pieces of silver, and the same again when you return. You may use the upfront silver to provision yourselves here in Pendaka, of course, or however else you adventurers manage to get through extraordinary quantities of coin. Any questions? Ask my counsellor. Duty calls. And with that the mayor leaves through a side door. A thin man of ascetic appearance steps forward, clearly the aforementioned counsellor. The counsellor gives them a purse of 400 silver pieces as promised. And now we got some more advice here for GMing. We'll put that in our secret block. Click on the advance payment loot actor to open up the coin bag, and click distribute coins to share among the players. Note there have to be players linked to the... Well, why don't we do it first and then talk about it? So what we need to do now is create some means by which we can give the players what we promised them. Now what we could do is just select a character, and go to their inventory tab and just add coins to each character. So we add in 100 silver if there's 4 players in the party. And now she's got 103 silver. Or we could do it a little bit more automatically, because we don't necessarily want to do that 4 times. So what we could do is create an actor, and this would be perhaps the simplest kind of actor, which is a loot actor. So we're going to our Actors tab. We've got the party here, so why don't we just create a folder. Actually, that's wrong. Oh yeah, no, sorry, wrong. So we want loot. So all our loot is going to be in a separate folder, and we'll create something from scratch. The name is going to be advance payment. It's obviously not a player character, it's going to be a loot type of actor in the loot folder. And it's created. So here we've got a treasure chest. This is what the icon is going to look like, but we can change that. Let's go to core data. So we're going to look at standard icons that comes with Pathfinder. No, that comes with Foundry VTT. I think system data would be the Pathfinder specific ones, core data, basic stuff. So containers, bags, and you've got that. Yeah, that looks nice. Patch of coins. That's what it's going to look like. And then we want to change the amount, and it was 400 in total. And so now we've got a little actor there. So let's edit this. And we'll drag this here. And have another little line there to separate it from text. And we'll save that. So now if we go into the journal and we go into player's introduction, whoops, we need to do the town hall, don't we? There we are, it is at the top. So now we've got an actor here, advance payment, and then if we're just in the text reading stuff to the players. We can easily just click on that. We can see it there. So how do we actually deal with this? How do we actually give the players? I showed you the basic system of directly adding coins to their inventories. What's here? So we open up the coin bag and click distribute coins to share among the players. And that's the button there. So you can see there's no actors to receive a share, because you have to link a PC to an actual player. So there's no players here, obviously. You have to link a PC to a player, then it becomes something, and then it becomes a candidate to receive a share. So once you have players logged on, affiliated with characters, you will see options, and you can click them, and it will distribute it equally between the number of players that you clicked. Another way to do it is if the players are on the landing page scene, you could drag it onto the scene and let the players do it. So here's our advance payment. You could just drag it there. And obviously you can do this in tactical maps as well. And you can make sure it's not invisible there to the players, so it's default visible. So the players will be able to see this now, advance payment. They can click on it, and they can't do the distribution, but they can drag the silver pieces onto their character. How many do you wish to move? So if you're sealer, you're going to take 100. So that's another PCs might want to take the whole 400. So then they don't, obviously, then they could just take 100. And so it's now 300 in the loot actor there, and Sealer is now, we'd already given her 100, hadn't we? Now we'd given her another 100, so she's now got 320 gold pieces worth. Well, 203 silver is worth 20 gold. Remember, she was a 5th level character. So having discussed how we would give the players their award in the most efficient manner possible, we had that the PCs may question the Mayor's Councillor in detail as they please. He is glad they have accepted the mission. The Grimbone situation was becoming a frustrating inconvenience. So let's do another page within the town hall and have information from the Mayor's Councillor. So the councillor will freely elaborate on what the mayor said and provide other basic information about Pendaka. He will impart the following specifics if questioned. And I mentioned here it might be another good time to show them the more local map that we'd had linked on the landing page, and we can show them specifically as well. About the Rune Lord debacle. I like to put heading 2 here. So if the players are asking the councillor a bit more about the Rune Lord background, the councillor can give them some information expanding on what we mentioned in the history in the very beginning. So he might say, oh, you asking about the Rune Lord debacle? Oh, let me see. A number of years ago, an army of ogres and giants swept across the land, storming Fort Rannick to the north, and defeating its garrison of Black Arrow Rangers. The invaders tried to break the dam at Skull's Crossing, but were thwarted by a band of heroes. Actual heroes, he says, looking at you askance. So we're talking about this area here, just north of Claybottom Lake. It turns out that the ogres were but the vanguard of an army of stone giants, led by one who had been possessed by the spirit of the Rune Lord of Greed. This Rune Lord was one of the 7 legendary evil rulers of old Thassalon, thousands of years ago. In any event, the heroes prevailed, the Rune Lord is no more, and life quickly returned to normal for us ordinary folk. Then the PCs, hopefully, will have the wit to... Whoa! So you see what's happened there? This is because there's some wrong formatting. So we do this, and then clear the formatting from where I pasted it from, and that's solved that problem. It adopts the formatting that we've set here. About the journey through the Ashwood Forest. It shows wisdom to consider not only the destination but the journey. I'm afraid the Mayor has a rather rose-tinted view of safety of travel within his borders. In reality, although the mission may be simply making an appearance on behalf of the Mayor, the only route there takes you through the somewhat infamous forest, a long stretch of woodland, seldom patrolled and never tamed. I recommend not straying from the path. In that way, you may avoid the forest's denizens. As to what those denizens may be, I shall confine myself to facts rather than rumour. Without doubt, there is a band of kobolds in the woods, fond of scaring simple commoners and naive fools who name them walking dragons. But a kobold is a kobold, and a tribe of kobolds is still, well, a minor irritation. There are the usual wild animals, wolves, bears, and aggressive badgers, not to mention the odd sturge nest. Now, I have to say there was a reliable sighting, from a distance, by one of the militiamen, of a greenish-winged reptilian creature soaring over the treetops of the forest, though its size could not be determined. Of course, as far as the populace is concerned, the forest is plagued by fearsome green dragons. Their intellects, have not grasped the fact that if there are indeed dragons on their doorstep, they would already have laid waste to the town and surrounding area. So, but maybe there will be some truth in that rumour. About Grimbone. Obviously the players are going to ask where they are heading towards. The town of Grimbone grew up just years ago around a quarry simply littered with silver and meteoric iron. The name arose from the fact that the quarry is also littered with bones, presumably from a mass grave lost to history. The quarry lies in a natural depression within the forest, surrounded by cliffs and crags. That's all he's prepared to say on the subject. About the local superstitions. What are the superstitions of the people, you ask? The usual: sacred grounds, evil cults, ghosts of the Black Arrows Rangers, evil spirits of the forest. Then there was the madman who staggered into town yesterday, claiming to be from Grimbone. He declared the town to be beset by the denizens of hell itself. In nightmarish visitations, devils supposedly came up from the quarry and terrorized the town, snatching away victims who were never seen again. Now I know what you are thinking. It's all going to turn out to be true, and you're being thrown unwitting and unprepared into some hellish adventure. But the man is a notorious drunkard. How could he have escaped and travelled all the way through the forest alone? Mark my words, perhaps the silver caravans are simply being held up by overzealous business practice, or perhaps there is indeed something rotten in the ashwood feeding the paranoia. But the gates of hell have not opened there yet. About equipment, you just got 400 silver between you to spend, which is good because you got more money to spend. Bad because if the GM thinks that you need an extra 100 silver each, maybe that says something about the difficulty of the campaign. About equipment. Yes, I thought as much. First adventure into the great unknown, eh? Well, we must all start somewhere. Not being patronising, of course. The silver that now fills your purses should buy you what you need. Oh, and if you decide simply to disappear with the payment without attempting the trip to Grimbone, every town and stopover point between Mirabar and Corvosa will be sure to hear of it. About Pendaka. That's the town that they're in at the moment. This town is not quite the Mirabar that our dear mayor talks it up as. Its commerce is based on fishing and the ore trade. If the latter dries up, the mayor's dreams will dry up too. The phrase backwater fishing village springs to mind. As Pendaka currently stands, this building, the town hall, doubles as garrison and jail. We also have the docks and marketplace, the Pendaka Inn, a general store or two, the Temple of Erastil, the soon-to-be Temple of Abadar, a few other shops like an apothecary and bookshop, sundry fishermen's dives, town dwellings, and all protected by a well-maintained and guarded town wall, a necessary thing given recent history in these parts. And obviously this can be paraphrased. The PCs might not ask these particular questions, but it gives enough. And as I said, if you're like me and have difficulty speaking spontaneously ad lib, then it gives a bit of a framework that you can slightly adjust their questions to fit the answers that he's provided here. So that's most of what would happen in the town hall. I think we'll finish this episode here. Just by way of recap, what we've covered is entering some more exciting chapters, or one chapter, our first chapter of the adventure. We've gone over creation of a scene, a very simple scene, because it was a landing page essentially rather than an actual tactical map. We've gone through importing a character, putting it in the party folder. We've gone through some automation, creating checks so that we can conveniently ask the players to make skill checks and other checks. And we've created our first very simple actor, which was the loot bag of the 400 silver pieces, and discussed perhaps a bit laboriously how we distribute that to the player characters. So I'm anticipating in the next episode we'll progress the story a little bit more, exploring Pendaka. I think we're heading for our first combat because we don't want to tease the players too long with information dumps without having a good fight to blow off the cobwebs. And so therefore we'll be creating our first tactical map scene, running our first combat, and I think that's going to be enough for the next episode. But for now, thanks very much for listening, and speak to you next time. Bye.